This is introductory video for Django. We will look at what Django is and then we will check the installation steps for Django. So first of all, what Django is. Django is an extremely powerful server-side web framework written in Python. So basically it is a Python framework for writing server-side applications. There are other frameworks of Python like Django out there like Flask, Tornado, but Django is most popular of all. Now let's see how to start using it to create our own web applications. So before we dive into it, you should have a basic understanding of Python and its object-oriented features like inheritance, abstraction, encapsulation and all. To install Django, we should have Python installed in our system. If you don't have Python, head over to python.org/downloads and install it in your system. Now check the version of Python that we have installed in our system. So to check it, we can use command python 3 -- version. So now you can see I have Python 3.9.6 installed in my system. So with Python, you already have pip installed in your system. Pip is a package manager for Python packages or modules. So we can use pip to install the Python packages depending on our application requirements. Although we can use pip to install Python packages, we will not use pip, but instead we will use pipenv. Pipenv is also a dependency manager for Python projects, but pipenv is recommended as it's a higher level tool that simplifies dependency management for common use cases. It also automatically creates and manages a virtual environment for our projects, as well as adds or removes packages from our pip file as we install or uninstall packages. So if you want to know more about pipenv, you can go to this URL pypi.org/project/pipenv. Here are all these details that I have mentioned above. So here you can see we have installation steps, as well as if you scroll down here you can see problems that pipenv seeks to solve. So to install pipenv, we can use command pip3 install pipenv. Since we have installed Python 3, that's why we are using pip3 here. Now we can go to any folder and create our first Django project. Now here I am inside a folder that I named Django, and inside that folder we are gonna use command pipenv install Django to install Django inside a virtual environment that will be created by pipenv and that you will see in a second. And now hit enter. Now sometimes we see pipenv command not found. For that I have a video to resolve that problem that you can check using iCard. In that video I have shown you how to resolve that problem in Mac OS since I don't have Windows machine. I have also mentioned the instructions in the description in case you face that problem in Windows, and I've also mentioned the URL from where I got the solution in case you are interested. So now you can see Django is installed, and it is installed inside a virtual environment that is created automatically by pipenv. If we had not used pipenv, then we had to create virtual environment for our project ourselves. So here don't get confused with folder as Django. It is our project and you can name it whatever you like. You can name it according to your project's name, and inside that you have to download Django. Now here you can see it is mentioned to activate this project's virtual environment, run pipenv shell command. Remember this command as we are going to use it in the future. So if we use ls command in the current directory, see here we have two files, pipfile and pipfile.lock. So let's open this directory using VSCode using command code space period. In case code command doesn't work in your system, that means VSCode is not set in your path. For that I have a video. You can use iCard for that and follow the instructions in the video to set the path for VSCode into your system. So here you can see both these files in VSCode. Now if we open the pip file, you can see the packages we have installed in this project. Like here you can see Django with an asterisk. That means latest version of Django is installed. It's like package.json file for JavaScript developers in case you encountered it before. So all of the dependencies that we install will end up here under packages. Now there are a few utility commands that are installed when we installed Django. So one of them is Django admin. We will use this command to create initial project file structure. But before we do so, we have to activate the virtual environment of this project. Remember that pip and shell command that we talked about? We will use this command for activating the virtual environment of this project, so that we can use that virtual environment to install and uninstall dependencies required by our project inside that virtual environment, so that our project dependencies do not clash with other projects' dependencies. We are also going to use same environment for creating new projects. So now we will use pip and shell command and hit enter. Now here you can see the virtual environment is activated, as we can see the folder name in parenthesis before the dollar sign. Now since our virtual environment is activated, we will use Django admin inside it. So now if we use Django admin and hit enter, here you can see Django admin provides some subcommands. So here one of them is start project. We are going to use that same command to create our first basic file structure. So now use Django admin start project and the name of the project, which will be test project. And if we now hit enter, you can see it has created a redundant folder with the same name. So to avoid that, we will get rid of this redundancy by using the previous command and space and a period. See here the redundancy is now gone. So the period that we appended at the end tells the command to create the project in the current folder. That's why it doesn't create a redundant folder. But now we have to use pip and shell command again and again to activate the virtual environment. To avoid that, we have to tell VSCode to activate the virtual environment for us when we open VSCode integrated terminal. To do so, we have to use Command Shift and P and search for select interpreter. So here we use the first one, and here you can see our virtual environment with Python 3.9.6. In case you don't see it, go to the terminal and hit pip and -venv for getting the virtual environment path. Copy the whole path, paste it in here and append /bin/python at the end, and now hit enter. Now VS Code knows which interpreter to use for our project. Now if we delete the terminal and open a new one, see our virtual environment is activated now. We do not have to use pip and shell command again and again to activate the virtual environment in the terminal. Now let's go to our project and see what structure we have here. So here we have manage.py file. So this is a command line utility to interact with our project. We do not need to modify this file. This file knows about settings of our project. Now we have our test project folder. Inside it we have $init an empty file that tells Python that this directory should be considered as a Python package. Then we have settings.py, which tells us settings or configuration for this Django project and contains initial default settings. Then we have urls.py. This is a place where our URL patterns live. Each URL defined here is mapped to your view. Then we have asgi.py. This is a configuration to run your project as an asynchronous server gateway interface (ASGI) application with an ASGI compatible web server. ASGI is a emerging Python standard for asynchronous web servers and applications. Then we have wsgi.py. This is a configuration to run your project as a web server gateway interface (WSGI) application with WSGI compatible web servers. This was the complete overview of the project structure. Now we are going to see how to run our application. Now again hit Django admin command. See here we have a command named run server. But if we use this command to run our server, we get an exception that requested setting debug, but settings are not configured. So remember we discussed that manage.py file knows all about our settings of our server. So instead of Django admin, we will use manage.py file to run our server. So now if we use python manage.py and hit enter, see we have all those commands that we had in Django admin. So here we have run server, start apps, etc. Now let's use python manage.py run server and hit enter. This will start a server at port 8000 by default. Now if we want to change the port, we can optionally supply an argument with our previous command. So here if we terminate this server with Ctrl+C and use the previous command and use our port as 3000 and hit enter. Now see, here our server is running on port 3000. So that's how we can change the port mapping. But I don't want another port, so I will use the default one and run the server at port 8000. Now if we copy and paste this URL which is given in the terminal in the browser, this is our first web server running on port 8000. So this was all about installation and running our first project.